Hello, my name is Kelly Powell, and this is my presentation detailing the processes of my gifted practicum in gifted characteristics and behaviors in the classroom and the process of identification in my home district of Walton County, Florida. During my practicum, I developed 3 goals. The first goal was to research best practices for creating and implementing professional learning classes for conducting professional learning for educators. My second goal was to design a professional learning experience for educators on gifted characteristics and identification. And finally, my third goal was to plan for and collect qualitative and quantitative data to measure the impact of the professional learning experience that I created in Goal 2. Research into best practices in professional learning suggested that educators prefer long-term supported professional development that is useful to them in the classroom and backed by research. However, once I was able to reach out to administrators about providing professional development to teachers on gifted characteristics and identification processes, it was determined that it would only be possible to do this in the framework of presenting during staff meetings or providing online PD that would be accessible at teachers' convenience. It was then that I sought information on how best to use short times, staff meetings, and mini sessions to deliver professional development to educators and staff at schools. During this phase, I also looked at maximizing effectiveness and time through engagement, addressing the biggest gaps, and targeting the right audiences. This research also involved meeting with gifted teachers and ESE coordinator and looking at gifted district data to determine the common gaps and issues with identification in our district. Once research into designing effective and short trainings was completed, along with gathering information on how best to implement that in my district, I began the process of creating a PD for teachers, staff, and administrators centered on learning common gifted characteristics and behaviors that would be seen in the classroom, as well as myths and misconceptions about these behaviors. I used guidelines from NAGC as well as discussions with gifted department professionals to determine what teachers currently had the most misconceptions about. It was determined that the areas most needed to be addressed were the differences between high achievers and gifted learners, twice exceptional learners, underachievement, needs to have a gifted program, and how to refer students for gifted screening. Through analysis of district data, it was determined that schools with less than a 2% of the population identified as gifted, especially if they were Title I or rural schools, would be the schools deemed in most need for these PDs. I was able to get approval to present by administrators at 2 of the schools that met these criteria. In order to maximize time and also provide more long-term support, I developed resource packets that covered additional topics and further elaborated on the information provided in person. These packets also contained common forms for referral and reference charts. A second digital PD was also developed for teachers that could not attend in-person PDs or who wanted to access this information at any point during the year. A Kahoot to encourage engagement during the PD was also developed but was not used at the first 2 in-person PDs. Finally, as part of Goal 3, I designed a pre- and post survey to assess understanding of topics covered in the PD before and after completion of the professional learning experience. This was in the form of a Google form that was emailed out the morning before the staff meeting and then again the evening after they sat through the PD. For those who participated, the data suggests that understanding increased as a result of sitting through the professional development. Teachers and administrators also reached out to me to let me know that they had found the information valuable, especially the resource packets provided to staff at the 2 schools that I visited. Several teachers also reached out to say that they would now be sending home forms to have students screened that they otherwise would not have. I also developed a Kahoot game that works as a form of assessment and could also be used at the beginning or end of the PD session to review and reinforce information. It was not used this semester, but I plan on using this to increase engagement at the next opportunity. Data collected and analyzed suggests that teachers and administrators increase knowledge of both gifted characteristics and gifted identification processes in our district. Some things that I accomplished through completing this practicum were increased teacher understanding of gifted characteristics and behaviors as they might be seen in the classroom, possibly an increased number of referrals as seen currently through qualitative data, increased collaboration between schools and the gifted department, increased awareness of the gifted program and a need for gifted enrichment for gifted learners. I feel like this also helped revise some of the processes for gifted screening and identification as we were able to update the current flowchart that our district uses to to identify whose responsibility it is in the screening process and what papers and forms need to be used. And it also opened the door for increased participation in the gifted program in our district through identification. It will be important to continue to develop this professional learning experience through refinement and expansion. I was not able to look at how these two PDs affected gifted referrals and placement at these two schools, as it's too soon to analyze that data. However, I plan to follow up with guidance and psychologists to determine if these strategies were beneficial in increasing gifted referrals and gifted placement. Data in our district also uncovered other schools that would benefit from this PD experience. I plan to make sure that resource packets, support documents, videos, and the Kahoot are all made available to other gifted teachers who would like to present this PD at their schools. Thank you for listening to me as I was able to detail to you some of the things that I experienced and learned through this gifted practicum. And here is a list of resources that I used to develop this PD and implement my goals.